Hello, my name is Daniel Boice, and today I'd like to talk to you about work that I've done with my co-author, Amaury A. Almeida, the University of Sao Paulo. Um, this has to do with phosphorus and cometary volatiles. So let me go ahead and share my screen with you and pull up my PowerPoint presentation. Here you can see our introduction title slide. I'm working for Scientific Studies and Consulting in San Antonio, Texas. So we would like to summarize some work that we've done about the possibility of comets delivering phosphorus to the early Earth and how we would go about looking for signatures of phosphorus, simple phosphorus molecules in comets. So here's an outline of our talk. Um, I would like to talk about some modeling that we've done and then summarize the results and give some ideas for future directions. Phosphorus in the cosmos is relatively scarce, even though it's an essential element and very abundant in living systems. It has a cosmic abundance that is only the 17th most abundant element. So compared to nitrogen, oxygen, hydrogen, its abundance is very low. Um, what has caused this large enhancement of phosphorus atoms in living systems in the cosmos? It's a very good question, open question here. The table I have listed phosphorus on the very lowest line here as it occurs in the cosmic environment, in our lithosphere, in animals, in RNA, and the like. If we were to imagine that the population on the Earth contained phosphorus people in the same types of cosmic abundance, we would expect to see about 2,000 cosmic phosphorus people on Earth. Since we're holding the meeting in Sydney, Australia, I wanted to give you a little comparison with Australia. That would mean that 7 of these phosphorus people would be in Australia. Only 3 would be in Sydney, according to the cosmic abundances. However, if we look at the abundance relative to phosphorus and RNA, we would expect 2 people in the room to be a phosphorus person. Phosphorus in biochemistry, of course, is a key ingredient of metabolic molecules, ATP, ADP, cell structure, the phospholipids, replication, forming the backbone of RNA and DNA, bone structure, calcium phosphate. So it's extremely important to living systems. There is a paradox called the phosphate paradox in the understanding of the evolution of life, where phosphorus molecules have extreme stability. So how could these phosphorus molecules that are bound up in other minerals and the like, how could that actually lead to a very rapid manipulation that's that's needed for living systems? It's kind of a bottleneck in this idea of origin of life. There seems to be no prebiotic pathway for incorporating phosphates into RNA or DNA. So when we think about other questions of phosphorus and the origin of life, it's present in the biomolecules, as we mentioned. It seems to be actively scavenged from the environment by life, even though the abundance is relatively low. We talked about the concentration in living systems. Then could it be that the phosphorus, a source of phosphorus, was also important to the origins of life? And how is that constrained in this quest for understanding? Could there be extraterrestrial sources? We're reminded of Louis Pasteur's famous quote, "Chance favors the prepared mind." So our idea was try to prepare ourselves with using our tools with as much information we could, and perhaps we would find some key or clue to understand these questions. Phosphorus delivery in comets, well, that's been studied all the way back to Oro's classic paper in 1961. And of course, other people have also looked at this idea. Can it survive the impact that would occur by some extraterrestrial source, be that comets or asteroids? Um, when we look at the role of comets and meteorites and asteroids, what was this role? These are all interesting questions that we still do not have a good solution for. Phosphorus observations in space. Well, we see a lot of phosphorus-bearing compounds in the atmospheres of the giant planets. We see them in interstellar, circumstellar shells. I've listed a number of the simple diatomic, triatomic, and other simple molecules of phosphorus. There are simple phosphorus-bearing molecules tentatively identified in sunspots. It's ubiquitous in meteorites. Phosphates being found in stony meteorites and iron meteorites, the like. And there was a tentative detection of the dust component of Comet Halley, but the molecular form is not known. Likewise, stardust samples from Comet Wild 2 also found elemental phosphorus. Again, the molecular form is not known. Searches for gas phase species have been unsuccessful for a number of comets. Only upper limits have been able to be derived. However, the Rosetta results, particularly from the orbiter, the Rosina DFMS mass spectrometer, did detect the phosphorus ion. The parent, of course, is not known. If we would assume that the parent was phosphine, then we might expect to see phosphorus about almost 0.2% relative to water. We expect simple diatomics to exist there. So it may just be a matter of further investigation, more landing missions on comet nuclei, where we can bring back samples perhaps. Where are they? We have applied our coma chemistry model called ComChem that's been around for many decades. It's a multi-fluid gas dynamic model and has extremely detailed gas phase and photolytic chemistry. To 300 plus species, 3,000 plus reactions can be modeled in the gases as they expand away from the comet nucleus. And we have put in very many self-consistent features to describe the environment, both gaseous and dusty environment surrounding comet nuclei. If we look at the photochemistry of phosphine, if we accept this as a hypothesis for one of the parents of the atomic phosphorus that has been observed, we know that photochemistry, of course, is extremely important in the coma of comets. It's the solar UV that initiates this photochemistry. And if we do have photochemistry occurring, well, we have energetic electrons also created. So we have to also self-consistently take into account these reactions with the energetic electrons, mainly electron impact processes, either photodissociation, photoionization, excitation, and the like. So here we have used some basic data about the rate coefficients of phosphine. We've listed this for the active sun and quiet sun, some of the excess energies that are also resulting from work that Hubner did back in 1992. We can see that phosphine breaks down to pH 2 and H is the main branch here. Also important in the chemistry would be protonization reactions. Protonation reactions occur when an ion encounters a neutral and a proton is transferred over to the neutral. If we have molecules with very high proton affinities, such as pH 3 and ammonia, these are very apt at accepting this proton donor and becoming protonated. Particularly since water is the dominant molecule in cometary coma, the water ion related species like H3O+, H2O+, OH+, all would contribute during collisions in the collision dominated inner coma to these protonization reactions. The coma chemistry that we modeled, we found over 100 gas phase reactions having to do with phosphorus, and we did include many of the details of these reactions. However, we have to warn that many electron impact reaction processes have not been measured in the lab, basically unknown. We have to make an estimate in many cases here. So the reaction networks are not complete. You use that as kind of a warning. And here's what we come up with as far as the network of chemical reactions, which would involve phosphine. Phosphine there at the center, we see a major reaction with a photon here. The red arrows or red lines indicate destruction paths coming from one of the molecules. The blue arrows going into a molecule represent formation reactions. So the width of the arrow also indicates the dominance of the reaction. The boldest arrows are the most dominant. The thin arrows are an order of magnitude down, and the dashed arrows are 2 orders of magnitude down. And so here we see the major reaction going from a photodissociation to pH 2 and H. What we also see competitive with this are the protonization reactions with H2O+, H3O+, OH+, leading to the protonated species, pH 4+. Now that does not live very long in the coma because there are many electrons around, and by recombination, the ion, the protonated species, goes back to a excited state of phosphine. I put a star next to that because that does represent that it's in an excited state. So we would expect to see the de-excitation occur, and we would expect to see some molecular spectroscopic bands form from that de-excitation, so-called hot bands that have been observed by other molecules in the coma. So we see that this is kind of a recycling that takes place between pH 3, the protonization reaction, de-excitation by the recombination back to pH 3. This extends the range of pH 3 as it's released from the nucleus. So in summary, we find that the model successfully accounts for the relevant phosphorus chemistry, with the caveat that the electron impact reactions we think are also important, but little lab data is known. We also see that we can use the chemical model to derive abundances in of these phosphorus-bearing species, and we can investigate the chemical pathways. The initial abundance on the order of about 10 to the minus 4 relative to water is what we would suggest. The scale lengths of pH 3, as we see for a typical comet at about 1 AU from the sun, is anywhere in the range from 13 to 16,000 kilometers. Protonization is also very important. Other likely species could be put into the model and studied too. pH 3 we know is a super volatile, so it sublimates at a very low temperature. If it was in a pure ice form, we would expect it to be sublimating very far from the sun, the range of carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide. We also established a collaboration with Hideo Kawakita and Yoshi Shinaka of Kyoto Sangyo University to use modern telescopic facilities to search for ground-based detections of phosphorus. So I'd like to end it there. Appreciate your attention and for your attendance at for my talk. And I also like to thank the organizers for the invitation to present this research to you. So I'll go ahead and take any questions now. Thanks again. And bye-bye.